The TLDR on it is that someone paid around 3 million US or 5.3 million New Zealand, 85 Bitcoin in a transaction fee to send only a little bit more than that in actual transactions. So yeah, how did this happen? I think probably the funniest or most tragic news of the last week or so is the record-breaking largest Bitcoin fee in history. I have heard quite a few different theories about quite how and why this happened, but the TLDR on it is that someone paid around 3 million US or 5.3 million New Zealand, 85 Bitcoin in a transaction fee to send only a little bit more than that in actual transactions. So yeah, how did this happen? The theories are abounding, but have we found a bit more info on quite how this occurred?
Yeah, so this is the definition of buyer's regret, right? This person clearly was doing things himself. He wasn't using a platform. He was clearly manually building transactions. With Bitcoin, because of one of its really archaic features is you need these things called change addresses. Change addresses can actually be your own address, so you just like send it back to yourself. But essentially, when you make a Bitcoin transaction, you actually have to send everything in that wallet, right? Even if you are sending it to yourself. It's this weird little quirk that a lot of people don't know about. And this person probably was aware of this, given like the level of technical stuff, but might have just not configured it right. So yeah, he had 130 odd Bitcoin in his wallet, and he wanted to send 40 of it to somebody, again Bitcoin anonymous, we don't know who it is, but didn't set up the change address, so spent another 85 Bitcoin sending his 40 Bitcoin to somebody. They were clearly trying something, so he created that address in that first block. He funded that address in that block, sending all of this different money to this one address, and then he was going to send it on to somebody else in the same block. So already really weird behavior, right? Like, why would you create an address in one block and then send it again in another block? So there's been a lot of questions that have come up about why he's kind of done this. Or they have done this, sorry, I should say.
Yeah, we don't know who's. But it's an interesting one that going back to the very basics of how Bitcoin works, right? And that it's quite different from other chains in this regard. So with, when we're used to having money, like say we've got $100 in our wallet or in our bank account, we used to be able to go, I want to pay you $20 and I keep the 80 behind. That's not how Bitcoin works. And Bitcoin is, it's a ledger, right? It's a series of entries of who pays who. And it takes your entire wallet balance and says, I'm going to send this amount to that person, and the other remaining bit I will send back to myself. And it makes it quite a different way, like you're saying, of how Bitcoin works. It also makes it quite interesting for tracing Bitcoin transactions. And a lot of blockchain analysis builds on this concept of the change address, and when a transaction in Bitcoin happens, to know which is the transaction going to someone else and which is going back to me, and being, it enables people to link wallets together, which is quite an interesting thing as well.
Anyway, Antminer got really lucky here. The most interesting theory is one of the ways that people think, and let's be clear, think because it's not actually a successful way of doing it, is it's a way of laundering money, right? Is you're part of a mining pool and then you pay more fees than what is necessary to that mining pool. Those miners then get a proportional amount back.
So if you were a money launderer, probably doing something that gets a whole lot of press and attention to your transaction, maybe not the way to go, right?
Yeah. So that's the theory that have been seen thrown around online as a way of like obfuscating the trail and stuff like that. But if they're trying that, it hasn't worked. The fact that it's on like mainstream news is probably not where you want your activities being broadcast. That being said though, other things that have been happening in the mainstream news, crypto related, Binance. Janine, what's happening there?
Yeah, so this was big news of the last week, that Binance was criminally charged with breaking sanctions and money transmitting laws, and has agreed to pay $4.3 billion to settle the allegations. So there's been a lot coming out of the US and against a whole heap of different crypto exchanges. We've seen Coinbase going up, Kraken. Bittrex actually recently shut down their global operations, which the understanding out in the news media around crypto is that this was a result of Bittrex's fines from the US government, eventually resulting in the collapse of the entire business globally. With Binance though, it's worth noting this is just the US business. It doesn't affect Binance in other countries and sort of Australia, New Zealand, or global Binance. However, obviously a $4.3 billion fine might have implications for their balance sheet, among other things. That said, I'm sure Binance is well made enough profits over the last couple of years to enable them to soak up that fine. This sort of flows on from some of the other challenges or regulation by enforcement that we've seen coming out of the US, and they fall into a couple of buckets. There is the offering unregulated securities, which is something that we've seen a lot of, Coinbase really leading the charge against the SEC in terms of, hey, if you give us the guidance and tell us what the regulation is, we'll be happy to comply with it, but let's not go down this route of don't give us the clarity, don't give us the answers, and then try to enforce. What's happened with Binance is quite a different one. It's around anti-money laundering and sanctions, and both of those are pretty black and white in terms of the regulatory environment that any player should be operating by, and it's a bit more of a clear-cut case of this should not have happened in the first place, as opposed to the securities law, which is a bit murkier around how people can comply.
I also feel like it's a lot less controversial. Like, I think most people agree you shouldn't be facilitating bad guys doing bad things, right? Like that's at the end of the day, and you need to make a reasonable effort to make sure they can't use your platform. You don't indirectly want to benefit these people when you're trying to do a good thing.
Talking about bad guys doing bad things, big hack this week for CyberSwap. What happened there?
So for those who don't know, CyberSwap, it's like MetaMask swaps, it's like Uniswap. It's an aggregator. What it does is it takes a whole bunch of different platforms, and it's a way of you interacting with all those platforms through one point. That being said, that's a single point of failure. And genuinely one of the most complicated but also interesting hacks that we've seen. And when we say it's a hack, it's not really a hack. They didn't gain access to a system. They didn't compromise somebody's private keys. They just used this protocol better than the developers thought anyone could. They clearly knew this protocol better than the developers used it. So long and the short of it is there was about $80 million worth of assets that were kind of provided into liquidity pools. The reason you would provide it into liquidity pools with an aggregator is it means that you can deploy your liquidity wherever the best prices are automatically getting the best returns. Of that 80 million, $48 million was nicked. So yeah, precautionary tale, don't put all your eggs in one basket. But yeah, how it happened, super, super cool.
And I hear also the hacker sort of put out some comms and was like, hey, I'm going to go to bed now, but, happy to have a chat about this tomorrow. But we haven't heard back in a few days, right? So whether the negotiations have gone offline or whether the hacker's just gone dark, it's a little bit of a mystery sort of how this is progressing and if any money will come back, right?
Yeah. So ultimate flexing on the honestly hitting them while they're down to this point. The CyberSwap exploiter is negotiations will start in a few hours once I'm fully rested. Clearly it was a school night. He had to get ready for school the next morning. Then just by sending messages on the blockchain, the CyberSwap guys came back saying, hey, you can keep 10% of the money, just return 90% of it and we'll call it even. You've identified an issue. And he's just not responded to them, so we're not sure.
The call it even thing's a bit of an interesting one, right? It's he's got 100% of the money, and what's the incentive to return 90% other than goodwill? So it'll be interesting, right, to see if that comes back.
Clearly because how technical this person is. This person knows their stuff. First of all, I think CyberSwap should be trying to hire them at this point because it is genuinely fascinating how this happened. But I'll be interested to see how much, if any, money comes back. I wouldn't be putting money into CyberSwap right now. That's all I'm saying on that point.
Nice. I think that's probably a wrap for this week, right? We've had a bit of good news, a bit of bad news, a lot happening in the space as always. Anything else sort of top of mind that we want to talk about this week, or should we wrap it there?
Oh, something, EC Wallet. Stable coin. I don't know. You might not have heard of it. Pretty underground.
Awesome news out from the Easy Crypto team. We've launched a New Zealand dollar stablecoin, NZDD, and we've also launched a wallet which you can use for the New Zealand dollar stablecoin plus all of your other top favorite cryptocurrencies. So there's heaps of comms out from us about that. We won't harp on about it here, but we might do a bit of a deep dive later on in another session. But if you are using the wallet and the stablecoin, love to hear your feedback, any thoughts you have, what you guys would like to see next. Jump into our Facebook community or in the comments here, and keep us posted with how we can help make those products and the rest of the Easy Crypto experience even better.